After working hard at the gym, you need a mattress that works as hard as you do. Spinalign has engineered the perfect mattress for you and your active lifestyle. Don't compromise your recovery with inferior sleep. Order your Spinalign mattress today.
Hey guys, we're super excited to be here at the LA Fit Expo. It's our third year in a row. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be launching Tasty Pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs. And we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
Old School Bodybuilding Clothing Company. If you're the hardest training person at your gym, you are old school. If you hate math but you can count by 45s, you are old school. OSBBC.com for the hardest training athletes.
RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions, diet, training, supplementation, anything and everything going on in and outside the bodybuilding world. So now we're with Dave Palumbo. Dave, this is that last 2-week stretch. We talked about it last week. We got confirmation, obviously, this past weekend with the Spain Europa Pro, and then this upcoming weekend with the Chicago Pro, the finish line for Olympic qualifications and excitement as James Hollingshead takes first at the Europa Pro, and then a lot to look forward to this weekend at the Chicago Pro. We'll see the debut of Nick Walker. And then earlier today, we released the interview with Justin Rodriguez, who many thought could have actually won the New York Pro, and he's going to go in certainly as one of the favorites for the Chicago Pro.
Yeah, I like Justin Rodriguez going into Chicago. I think he's got a great physique. I think he's reminiscent of a throwback Victor Martinez. I think that he's only getting better from show to show. He seems to have figured out his conditioning with his coach. And so I think that he's going to be the guy to look out for. I think you have to think, I think if I was putting my money behind someone to win that show, it would be probably him. But then again, I don't know everyone in the lineup yet, so I'm not sure exactly, I don't want to jinx him or anything like that, but he looks pretty damn good. And I think, like I said, he's on that upward trend right now. So it seemed like he didn't really know what he was doing before, and he was kind of succeeding despite himself. Now he kind of has a game plan, and so he's doing consistently better. And I think that's it's exciting. Like I said, it's the last of the qualifier of the year. We'll have to see who's going to be. I'm surprised they're not giving 3 qualification spots away for this show, but they're not. It'll be the winners, and then, of course, we'll see who's going to wind up with enough points. Will Ramy have enough points? He might slip in there because given a lot of these guys who are winning shows, we're pulling them out of the points, and they're going automatically on an automatic qualification. We had 3 qualifiers from last week in Spain, so we'll probably see Ramy on an Olympia stage as well. I hope we do.
Well, right now, if you look at the top of the points table, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it's Regan Grimes. I don't know the exact points, but it's Regan Grimes, it's Max Charles, and it's Big Ramy. In that mix is Justin Rodriguez. So you figure if Justin Rodriguez wins, he leads for all of them, obviously. If Max Charles wins, then he's out of that point zone.
Right.
So there will be certainly scenarios in which Big Ramy should get help from this upcoming weekend. But again, if you haven't seen that interview already with Justin Rodriguez, for many people, it might be your first actual look hearing from Justin Rodriguez. He really broke out at the New York Pro 3 years ago, and Dave even mentioned it during the interview. Kind of came from out of nowhere. He's got a pretty cool story. He's from the Dominican Republic, grew up playing baseball, wanted to be Sammy Sosa. Dave even asked him what was tougher, bench pressing 400 or hitting a 95-mile-per-hour fastball. So they have him with that. Really good interview. You're going to want to check that out on RxMuscle.com and the YouTube channel. Let's go to the questions. The first 2 questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. The first question, Dave, what would you consider to be a normal blood pressure range? I hear mixed numbers. So I guess I'll add to that because, in particular for bodybuilders.
I go back to the old 120 over 80. I know that now they're saying, it should be the 80 can be a little lower to a 75. I think 120 over 80 is a good range. And of course, you're going to get a plus and minus on that. So if you're 82 on the lower number, or you're, you're 125 or 130, even on the upper number. I really wouldn't get too carried away with that, because as you know, when I was a bodybuilder and I was like, over 300 pounds, if I was sitting in that chair with the blood pressure cuff, which barely fit my arm, even with the leg cuff, I was, if I moved around, my blood pressure went up. So it's hard to get an accurate assessment. Now, if you obviously come back at 180 over 100, that's, you're in big trouble. That's high, and you should be getting on some blood pressure medications. But I go with the old standard 120 over 80.
Second question, again from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Dave, currently train using your, quote, male workout plan and really enjoy it, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. I'm wondering, though, what is the hype with the new modern day, quote, push day, pull day, rest, legs, rest schedule all about? What are the pros and cons of this approach?
Look, when I worked out, when I was coming up, I've tried there's no new training regimens, okay? Everyone just rehashes it and repackages it. There was the push-pull. Everything you did was push one day, pull the next day. So it was like back and biceps one day, push was triceps, shoulders and chest, and then you do legs. And then you repeat that. So you would do 3 days of training, and then another 3, you would repeat it for 3 days, and you take 1 day a week off. Never worked for me. Totally overtrained in those days. It was too much volume on the push day for me. The pull day also, I never got a good bicep workout because my back exhausted my biceps. And the only thing I really got was legs was good, but then I was training them twice a week, which was too much. So that never worked for me. And then you got the days where you just do the old Ronnie Coleman routine, which is train each body part twice a week, 1 day a week off on Sundays for church. Didn't work for me either. Not enough days off. So I found that one body part per day enabled me to really focus on that body part, okay, and not have to worry about doing another body part. And it wasn't like a super, super long workout, so I wasn't overtraining. And then I got 2 days a week off, rest-wise. So I would do 3 days in a row, 1 day off, 2 days in a row, 1 day off. And so over that 5 training days, I got my whole body done. And I found that was the best as far as training routine plus rest, which enabled me to recover, so that by the time the following week came and it was time to train the body part again, I was kind of like looking forward to it. If you're not looking forward to training a body part because you're still tired from the last one, and I'm not saying it doesn't have to be physical exhaustion, it could be mental exhaustion. That's just as bad. If you mentally don't want to train legs because you just trained it 3 days ago, you're not going to have a good workout. That just goes without saying. So for me, and for most people, one body part per week with 2 days of rest per week seems to be ideal. That's not to say that some people can't do each body part twice a week, but I don't think there's any productivity in there. I really don't. I don't think you're going to be better for it. If anything, I think you're breaking down your body too much. That's just my opinion. I'm just some asshole from the street, who's making an opinion here. But having given the fact that I've tried every routine and that I've seen how it works on other people, I find that my approach works best.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. If you're not following us, it's official_RxMuscle. And again, if you're not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button below, hit the notification bell. As we mentioned, with the final stretch heading into the Olympia qualification, and of course, our coverage of the Olympia, you're not going to want to miss any of our segments. Hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our upcoming videos, previews, interviews, episodes of Iron Debate, what have you. It's all going to be on RxMuscle. It's all going to be available to you via push notifications. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below. Obviously, that helps us. And as always, we thank you for your support. So the first question I'm actually going to tease. Last night, we have, of course, our episode of After Hours. Really, really good perspectives on a lot of different things. We talked about, the Olympia Expo and the fact that there really is going to be a full-scale Expo and what is the future of the Expos. But then, as the show many times tends to get, it got a little political. So here's a question from Long Live the King, and it's actually a great idea, Dave. Would you and John Romano do a live stream watching along the next presidential debate?
No way. My father warned me. He said, never talk religion, never talk politics. He said, there's nothing good that can come of it. And unless you're running for office. And I'm not running for office. My political views are irrelevant. But matter of fact, I don't even care, to be honest with you, who wins. It doesn't faze me one bit. I think it's mental masturbation to even to debate this and to debate that. I have my own personal viewpoints about what I think is going on behind the scenes, but it's irrelevant. And like I said, I'm here to talk bodybuilding, nutrition, supplementation, and educate people on how to stay healthy, both mentally and physically. That's my job.
Let's go to good answer there, because I think a lot of people are, they want to see, to tip the hat. But yeah, I think that's probably the safer way to go. Let's go to Raheem M. And here's a loaded one. The biggest bodybuilder in person that you have ever seen?
I've said it before, I'll say it again. Greg Kovacs, hands down, no one close to him. Biggest human being I've ever seen from a muscular standpoint. Jeep Swenson was probably the heaviest guy, well, one of the heaviest guys. He was 400 pounds too, and he was like well over 6'5". But he was not, he had some body fat on him. Kovacs, lean body mass wise, was the craziest I've ever seen. I've seen him at 400, I think 20 pounds at the 98 Olympia in New York City. I remember he was sitting in a chair. I don't know how he didn't break the chair. He looked like he was sitting like in a children's chair. When you go like, I drop my kids at preschool sometimes, and I'm sitting in a little kid's chair, and it's like, you could barely sit in the thing. That's how he looked, sitting in a regular adult chair. He was enormous. It was larger than life. When I would walk through a shopping mall with him, no one even looked at me. And I weighed over 300 pounds. No one even, it was like I wasn't there. He was just like a mountain.
Let's go to Alex Druin. Coach, if your workouts are like the first set's all heavy, and after you finish with heaviest, you can do more for reps like 12 to 15 for more tension. Reason I'm asking is that after 3 to 4 sets really heavy, I'm pretty much spent, but still have a little bit to finish the lesser weights. Would that work?
Yeah, that's why I tell you, don't worry about volume. I used to go to the gym and bench press, incline bench press 4 or 5 sets, and I wanted to go home after that. I was done, So what I started doing was I would do my incline benching, which I knew was my mass building movement. I would go to like maybe some dumbbells and do 1 or 2 sets, the most, 1 set of cable crossovers or 1 set of dumbbell flies, and I'd go, that was it, that was chest. You don't need to do more. There's no rules. Let me tell you something. There's no rules to working out. If you go in and have your best incline bench press session you've ever done, and you lift more weight than you ever have, and you do full range motion, and you touch and go on your chest, and you feel like a super pump, and you lifted more weight than you ever lifted, why would you keep pushing beyond that? There's nothing you can do that's better than that. You can just leave. The only thing you're gonna do now is just like squeeze a little bit, a few more sets, maybe hit a few different angles. But you've done your work at that point. And I think that what the problem is that people think that they have to do every single machine in the gym and every single exercise, and they got to do 4 or 5 sets for each exercise. Otherwise, they haven't done enough for their chest. And what they wind up doing is overtraining. And when they overtrain the muscle and it can't recover properly, they don't make any gains on that. So all the good they did with that heavy first exercise kind of gets overrun by the fact that they overdid it and they annihilated the muscle. And as Haney used to say, stimulate, don't annihilate. It's a trite saying, but it's really true.
Masteron question from Neil Zalewski. Dave, your opinion on using Masteron in a bulk to help with aromatization and water weight, as well as the synergistic benefits of having a DHC derivative in your stack? Is it worth adding in an off-season stack?
Yeah. It doesn't matter where they derive the steroid from, okay, or how they synthesized it. Whether they synthesized it using a DHT molecule, or they synthesized it using a testosterone molecule, or they synthesized it from something else, it doesn't retain any of the properties of what they synthesized it from. So that's thrown out in the garbage right off the bat. Is Masteron something good that you can stack with testosterone for gains? Sure it is. Any anabolic is. It doesn't, water retention aside, if you're in an off season trying to grow, probably a little fluid retention is actually beneficial because it makes you stronger, it protects your joints a little bit. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to have a little fluid retention on your body. Having said that, I like to switch up the anabolics, every 6 to 8 weeks, 1 year off season. So maybe do 6 weeks of testosterone with equipoise, 6 weeks of testosterone with trenbolone, 6 weeks of testosterone with Deca. If you want to do 6 weeks with testosterone and Masteron, that's fine too. You can do 6 weeks with testosterone and Anavar if you really want to. There's no rules. Do what makes you happy or what works best. I like the long-acting injectables better than the shorter-acting ones. So but there's no rules. I've done, with guys that are like more like beginner guys that haven't really used testosterone. I've done like equipoise and Masteron before in a mass building cycle. Steroids build and repair muscle. They don't burn fat. There's just different degrees of how strong they are. So if you're at an advanced level and you want to maximize gains, you want to use the strongest, longer acting ones there are. And for me, that would be your testosterone, equipoise, DECA, Trenbolone. If you can find injectable Dianabol, that's a really good one too to mix in there. And I see that's been floating around a little bit more than normal. But I will say this, and I really want to preface this, and it's not a sales pitch in any way whatsoever, but I had a girl, I'm not going to say who she is, bikini competitor. She started, on taking some Anavar, and she was gaining weight, and I had her on a diet. I mean, she was, and she would look like she was getting leaner to me, but she was like big, muscular. I'm like, I got to ask you. I said, have you tested this Anavar with the Roy test kits, that I sell on DavePalumbo.com? And she's like, no, it's a good source. Supposedly it was supposed to be a good source. Well, I have said this before. Don't trust anyone. She tested it. Okay, it was Dianabol. I hate to say this, but I keep repeating myself, but I'm going to do it because it pops up more and more and more. Recently, just within the last 6 months or so, I've been seeing a lot of Anavar coming back as Dianabol, and a lot of injectables, a wide variety of them, from just regular testosterone esters to equipoise, DECA, all coming back as test propionate. There's a lot of faking going on out there. And the reason they're doing this is because test propionate is very cheap. And if they put testosterone propionate into something, you're going to feel it, okay? And you might not know it's fake. You might just think, oh, this stuff is working, but I'm telling you, test everything, okay? Because especially if you're a woman, you should not be using Primabone and you're really using test propionate. If you're using Anavar when it's really Dianabol, you're going to get major side effects. And if you're a guy and you're spending good money on anabolics and you're getting cheap test propionate, you're wasting your money. So just go buy the Roy test kits. Now you have the semi-quantitative ones. You could actually tell how much of the ingredient is in there. Don't waste your time or money or your health for that matter. And if you're a woman, your femininity.
Let's go to CX Riesel. Why do I occasionally go hypo if I'm not diabetic and my fasted glucose is always normal? My high days can be 500 grams carbs, and my low days can be half of that, but I've had it happen randomly on various meal sizes.
It's hard for me to give you a definitive answer on that because I don't know all the variables. Some guys, they take a shot of, growth hormone with breakfast, and then they wonder why an hour later they go hypo. Well, when you take growth hormone, it causes the liver to produce IGF-1, which is insulin-like growth factor. The reason it's called insulin-like growth factor, it has an insulin-like effect, so it can drop your blood sugar. Some people take a pre or post-workout shake that has a whey protein isolate mixed with like a high molecular weight carbohydrate, and I advise people to do this all the time. Those high molecular weight carbohydrates get absorbed so rapidly into the bloodstream that they actually have a higher glycemic index than sugar. And that means they cause a huge surge of insulin release, which is great post-workout, right? Reglycogenate the muscle as quickly as possible. However, if you release a lot of insulin very quickly, it's very likely that you might be producing too much insulin. Okay, your body kind of hyperreacted to the spiking blood sugars. And when you do that, it can drop your blood sugar after, it starts clearing the sugar from the blood and you can go low. So that's a very common occurrence, post-workout. Also, a lot of times people go to the gym and they have maybe like a quick acting carb before they go into the gym, and then midway through their workout, they go hypo. And that's just because your body's over-responding and releasing too much insulin. Nothing wrong with that. Identify it. Have something available to sip, whether it be a coconut water or Gatorade or something like that, to bring up your blood sugar a little bit, and then go back to training. There's nothing wrong with that. Just be aware that happens. You can correct it. Low blood sugars are not a problem health-wise. High blood sugars, on the other hand, are a huge problem, and I'm seeing a huge surge in those as well. And I've been addressing it with having guys, using long-acting insulins, to help aid their body in producing enough to kind of keep their blood sugars low enough where it's in the normal range. Because if you run high blood sugars, you're going to have side effects, vision disturbances, you're going to have kidney issues long-term, you're going to have extremity problems. It's not healthy to have high blood sugars. And the longer you have these high blood pressures, the worse the problems are. I saw a hemoglobin A1C, which is the 3-month average of blood sugars, that you can get blood work done and it'll tell you what that is. I saw one that was the normal is 5.6. I saw a 15. That's nuts. That's type 1 diabetic, undiagnosed right there. And you could die from that. So, you got to know your numbers. There's no excuse why everyone who bodybuilds doesn't have a blood sugar monitor. You can go to Walmart and buy one for $9 and test your fasting blood sugars in the morning. They should be under 90, and your 2-hour post-meal blood sugar should be under 130. If they're not, then you're running high, okay? But having a few reactive hypoglycemia, low blood sugar episodes is not a big deal health-wise. You just have to be able to identify it so you can bring your blood sugar up by taking in some carbs.
We used to talk a lot more about men's physique. I remember back to like 2014, 2015, you had some, I don't want to say you don't start, but you had a lot more controversy. You had a lot more smack talk, a lot more notable smack talk, I guess. So then again, the conversation that switched to classic physique, and obviously then they were able to display their legs a little bit more. So the question from JM Powell: do you think men's physique should have shorter shorts to show more legs and have more poses for their presentation?
It is what it is. That's the division. If you want to hit poses, then do classic physique. I think that's why they created classic physique. It's why I was calling for classic physique for many years before they created it, because I said, you know what? I feel like these guys want to do more on stage, some of them. But if you want to do more on stage, and you want to hit leg poses, then that's not men's physique anymore. It's a different class, and that's why classic perfectly fit into that right between men's physique and men's bodybuilding. So I think it's a mistake if you start making men's physique too much like classic physique, because then there's no distinction. So I like where it is right now. I think the men's divisions are perfect. I think that the women's divisions are out of whack, because I think women's physique and women's bodybuilding is essentially the same. And I think there's not enough of a distinction. I think figure got too big. I like muscular, ripped girls, don't get me wrong. I think that's a better look. But really, in essence, figure got out of control. It's very hard for a girl to come into figure and actually be competitive, after training only for a couple of years, because you have to put on a lot of muscle to be competitive at the top level. It's bodybuilder. The figure girls today look like the bodybuilders did a couple of years back. When figure first started, the girls were not big. As a matter of fact, they got marked down if they were too muscular, and they were told to go up to the next class. They're not doing that anymore. So, I almost think that the top figure girls can go into women's physique and probably win pro shows. That's how close they are. They're just not hitting poses on stage. That's the only differentiation at this point. So the women's classes are a little more blurred. I think the men's, they got it perfect.
Let's go to Phil Francis, PT. I'm currently taking milk thistle daily at 250 mg for liver health. Is this enough? What dosage do you recommend to take? And do you only take it once a day?
Yeah, I like milk thistle. Milk thistle's job is to open up the bile ducts in the liver, which is where the bile is produced in the liver, and then it flows into the gallbladder, and then the gallbladder releases it when you eat a fatty protein meal. A fatty meal. And what happens a lot of times is that the liver gets inflamed because it's being stressed. Then these bile ducts get pinched off. And then the bile can't flow out, so the waste and all the toxins in the liver can't flow out to the gallbladder where they're then released and gotten rid of from the body. That's a problem. Then we talk about having jaundice if it backs up too much and you get too much inflammation. You can have scar tissue laid down. You can produce fatty liver, issues. So what milk thistle does is it reduces the inflammation around these tubules and opens them up a little more so that the bile can continue to flow and the toxins can come out of the liver. They found that combining, milk thistle, which is also known as silymarin, with N-acetylcysteine, which is a really great antioxidant because it's a precursor to glutathione in the body, and you seem to have a better synergism in liver detoxification. Bill Llewellyn makes a product called Liver Stable, and I really love the product. I was going to make my own, but I feel that his product is pretty much as good as anything I could make. So I actually sell his product, the Liver Stable, on DavePalumbo.com, And I noticed a lot of people who were having some high liver enzyme levels or having some jaundice issues who took the liver stable, and it kind of reversed the problems. The good thing about the liver is the liver really regenerates pretty quickly. So once you open those bile ducts up and let all the crap out, the liver will regenerate fast. Whereas the kidneys, on the other hand, it can regenerate, but it takes a lot longer. So I know a lot of people who have some high creatinine levels have come to me, and I've referred them to my website. I sell a product called Kidney Stuff that Golden Standards makes. And once they start on that, it works, but it takes a little longer. Whereas the liver you can turn around in like 30 days. The kidneys, it can sometimes take 3 to 6 months, but those creatinine levels will come down if you religiously take the Kidney Stuff product, and obviously do the detoxification program that I kind of offer for free. If you email me at Dave285@AOL.com, I'll give you the detox program. Once you give your body a chance to heal itself, it will, but the liver really responds well. So to answer the question, milk thistle is great, but combined with N-acetylcysteine, even better. If you want a one-shot product, I sell, like I said, the Bill of Wellness Liver Stable on DavePalumbo.com, and it works really well. Guys use it on cycle, they use it off cycle. Some people use it all year round. It's entirely up to you how often you use it, but if you're definitely having some issues, I highly advise it and recommend it.
Let's go to Xanadu 667. How important is iodine for optimal thyroid functions?
Well, you can't make thyroid hormone without iodine, so it's absolutely essential. Now, if you take in any kind of iodized salt products, I used to use the Himalayan sea salt and the pink sea salt because I thought it was cool and it had minerals in it and all that stuff. But then I realized it had no iodine in it, so I started using just regular iodized salt in the supermarket, and that's probably better for your thyroid. But also, if you take a good nutritional supplement, like I make a product called Demineralize, a lot of you guys know, it contains sea kelp in it. When sea kelp is a great source of iodine. But yeah, if you don't eat any iodine in your diet, you can't make thyroid hormone. You can certainly become hypothyroid just because you're deficient in it, which would be silly because it's like you really don't have a problem. You're nutritionally deficient. And if you work out and you train, you're going to have a higher requirement for iodine. So, and it's the same with every mineral and vitamin and trace metal. You have a higher need for these things because your body is engaging in more chemical reactions. The more chemical reactions, the more of these vitamins and minerals and trace metals you need because they're cofactors or as we call them, catalysts in all these chemical reactions.
Let's go to Demand Jot. Dave, what do you think about vertical leg press over normal ones? I feel more legs and more back support to lift heavy.
I don't like the vertical leg press, and I'll tell you why. I think it puts your back in a very compromised position, and I don't like having the weights over my head. I feel like I have a guillotine over my head. And I've seen way too many guys that I'm friends with tear quads on those. And when you tear a quad on a vertical leg press, you tear both quads. Because what happens is you tear the first one, and then the other leg tries to catch the weight, and then you tear the other one. And it happened to my friend Ron Norman, and I've seen it happen to other people before. So I think it's a dangerous machine. Personally, I like the horizontal leg press, the one that's straight on. You push straight out. I feel that in my quads the best, to be honest with you. That's just me. I think it's much safer too. You can't lift the weight, there's no danger to it. Whenever your body's in a dangerous position like that and you're using a lot of weight, you're asking for trouble.
Let's go to Bandy Nats. Ivan, in your experience from talking to other coaches and professional bodybuilders, what percentage of them has the going off gear approach like you? Is the majority just cruising on the lower dose or actually going off everything?
Yeah. That's a good question because I think a lot of people are liars. I think a lot of coaches pretend, oh, yeah, of course I make my client. And then they don't because they're afraid. They're afraid that the people they're working with might not look good. Or they may have if they have an off period and someone takes a picture of them, they'll be like, oh, look how terrible this guy's looking and he's working with so-and-so. You can't worry about the good opinion of others. The right thing to do is to come off the drugs, for 8-10 weeks at least every single year, if not more if you have the ability to. Some of these guys, however, at the top level are competing all year round, so they really only have, one off period where they can actually clean out. But you got to do it. If I hear the word cruising one more time, I think it should be banned from the bodybuilding vocabulary, that word, cruising. Yeah, and it's always the young guys that don't know anything about this that are cruising, okay? And they like that word because it sounds cool, and it rationalizes and gives them the ability to stay on drugs, and it sounds like it's okay. Hey, I'm just cruising, right? No, well, you're cruising for a bruising, as Kinnick said from Grease, if any of you guys remember that movie. The problem is you're looking for problems because you're not allowing your body to detox, you're not allowing your receptors to recover, and you're basically, when you do go back on, you're not going to respond because you're going to be, you never had a chance to allow your body to kind of reset itself. And you're not making any gains anyway. You're just kind of assuaging your fragile ego. At least I'm getting a pump and I'm not going to come off. People are nuts. You know, they can't live. I got no sex drive, I can't do this. They got 1,000,001 excuses why they can't come off drugs. Believe me, if you go off for 8 weeks, the first 4 weeks you're on a PCT anyway, and all the drugs that you've been taking prior to that are still in your system for 3 weeks. So you're really only off 4 weeks. And 4 weeks goes by like that. I'm telling you, if you eat right, you train, you sleep, you're not going to lose a single thing. All right, so you're not going to want to, have sex like a porn star for 4 weeks. Get over it, guys. You know what I mean? It's only 4 weeks out of the year. So I think a lot of people are ridiculous, and I think that the internet has made it okay, has justified it in people's minds to never go off because, hey, you're just cruising.
Time for a couple of more questions. Alex Williamson, 92. Dave, your opinion on stimulants. Is it better to stop taking them while I'm ahead, or do the short-term benefits outweigh the long-term effects?
I've had differing opinions on stimulants for over the years, and my belief is if you can get away with taking no stimulants, then that's the best option. Unfortunately, we live in a world where people have to work, and sometimes they don't get to sleep as much as they want. And now, having 3 kids myself, I'm getting 4 hours of sleep, and I understand I can't function unless I have a little bit of stimulation. So I do take an occasional half of an energy drink. I'll use a little bit of a pre-workout, if I'm going to train. I try not to overdo it, and I don't do it every day. Okay, so that's the key. Because if you don't use stimulants every day, they seem to work better. If you're going to start pounding energy drinks and coffee and pre-workouts a couple times a day, every single day, you become immune to them. I know people could take them and go to sleep, because it just doesn't work. And so my feeling is that the less you can do, the better, because the less you're going to stress the body out. Because the more stimulant you put into your body, okay, the more the body becomes stressed out. When the body is stressed out, it releases cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and it's catabolic to the muscle. But if you do it in moderation and you just use a little bit will go a long way with the stimulant. And that's the key. It's finding the perfect balance. I'm working on a new pre-workout, for Species Nutrition, and I'm trying to make one that's not loaded with stimulants, but that has other neurotropic, supplements that are going to make you feel good and feel motivated to want to go to the gym without overstimulating your body. And that's, I think, the magic formula right there, to get that blend so that you don't overstim the body, because we know that overstimming the body is just not good. It's like getting in your car and over-revving the engine all the time. If you over-rev it, to screech off the line and pass the guy at the traffic light, that's one thing. But if you never take your foot off that throttle all day long, you're going to burn out the engine eventually.
I just saw this one. I really want to get this one in. It's from Ilya Milosh. How would Dave approach coaching someone really obese? What kind of exercise would he put them through, and what kind of and how much would he cut their calories? Mm-hmm.
I put them on, when I start guys off or women off and I have a few clients like this. I have a guy who's lost over 100 pounds already that I'm still working with. I put them on like a bodybuilder diet. I give them a lot of food to eat, believe it or not. And a lot of them can't even eat it at first, which you find, you say, wow, what do you mean you can't eat all this food? How'd you get so heavy? Because most heavy people eat like 3 humongous meals a day. Whereas bodybuilder diet is small, frequent meals per day. So they're not used to eating like that, and they have to train themselves to eat that way. And when you train yourself to eat that way, you increase your metabolic rate. So I get them on, for men, 6 meals a day, whether it be 3 shakes and 3 food meals. For women, it's usually 5 meals a day, 2 shakes, 3 meals is usually just easier to do. I put them on some cardio. If they can weight train and they're not morbidly obese, so they can't even fit on an exercise machine, then I'll give them weights to do as well. And, let them train. Because I don't want them to lose muscle, okay? Well, because heavy people have a lot of muscle in their body to hold all that weight. You want them to retain that because that's their metabolic, that's their metabolic machinery. The more they got of that, the better their metabolism will be. And you'll find that when you first start training, putting a heavy person on a diet, they actually have their metabolism will work to their advantage because of all the muscle they have. The key is to give them enough protein so they don't lose muscle, but yet work them enough so that they're burning calories and they're burning fat. And I find that heavy people will burn calories. They'll go through the first 30 pounds goes pretty quickly if they're regimented. And the key is you don't want them to be hungry, because as soon as they build up hunger, they're going to cheat, and you don't want that. That's why it's important that they eat frequently. And how much they eat is going to be dependent on their body's metabolism. That's a trial and error thing. I try them out on one thing, and I see how their bodies respond. But what I explain to them is that, you have 100 pounds to lose. It's not going to happen in 6 weeks. If it does, then if you lose that much in 6 weeks, you're going to gain it all back, because it's not going to be all fat. It's going to be muscle too. We don't want to starve the weight off them. We want it to come off slowly, but when you do it in a slow, controlled fashion, like 2 to 3 pounds a week, what you'll find is that when the weight does finally come off, it will be permanent, and that's what we want. We don't want this kind of fat. We don't want yo-yo dieting. And if you don't want yo-yo dieting, you have to put them on a plan that's doable and reproducible and something that they're going to be able to do long term. And that's the most important thing. You have to let them know that they're in this for the long term. And once they realize they can eat 6 times a day, they're going to be like, I don't feel that urge to have to go out and go crazy anymore. Of course, there's going to be slip-ups along the way. That's the way it goes. But when you slip up, when you're eating 99% of the time right, the slip-up doesn't mean anything anymore. And so that's when you get them back on track. You corral them back, and motivation is good. But when they see the scale start to go down and their body changing and their clothes fitting better, that's a very big motivating factor right there.
Last question, Zoan Fit, a pertinent one for this upcoming weekend Chicago Pro. Do you think Nick Walker will place top 3?
I think he has the ability to win the show. I mentioned earlier that I think Justin Rodriguez is going to win. But I think Nick Walker has a great shot too. He's got more mass than anyone there. He's got a lot of hype and he's got a lot of momentum behind him after that big win for his pro card. He's a good-looking guy. He's young. He's got youth on his side, obviously, and he's got he gets himself really shredded, and I think that's important. And he's not giving up a single pound of size to anyone. As a matter of fact, he might be the biggest guy on stage. So I think it's an exciting thing. I've never seen, in recent years, it's hard to see someone go in and dominate a pro show like that so close to the Olympia, because you're going to have some good guys in the event. But I would not be surprised if he walked away with the win if everyone else is a little bit off, because it is possible, and I think he's in a very good mindset right now. He's motivated. He just did really well. He's got a lot of hype behind him. I think people want to see him go to the Olympia. So I wouldn't be shocked if he won, but I would also not, I would definitely predict top 5 for him. I think a lot of people are looking at pictures of him on Instagram and saying, oh, look at the size of this guy, no one can beat him. But you're going to see him next to guys on stage that have seasoned physiques, that have, better structures maybe than he does, better flow, they might have better stage savvy, so you might not even expect certain people who will beat him to beat him until you see them on stage next to him, and then you realize, oh wait, this is not the amateur level anymore, this is the pro level. But on the other flip side of the coin, you also have to say this guy is big. He's got size. No one's going to outsize this guy on stage. He's going to hold his own really well. The question is, how will he look and present what he's got on a pro stage? And that's what the excitement is. That's what makes it fun, and to speculate and to say, hey, I don't know how it's going to go. Let's see how the weekend pans out.
Who was the last, first-time open class bodybuilder to win it? Was it Sergio Oliva 4 years ago?
Well, look at Hunter Labrada just won his pro debut.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, it's been done before. There's no doubt in that. But Hunter took a year and a half before he competed.
Right.
How many guys just go from Lunsford, right? Didn't Lunsford go and win a show like the week after he turned pro or something like that?
Yes.
And went to the Olympia. He had a whirlwind like that. So I mean, it's happened before. It's just it's not unfounded. It's hard. It's a weird year. There's a lot of guys going in the show. It's not going to be a weak show by any means. I don't think it will be, at least. So,
well, we got the competitor list on our Instagram. There was a lot of feedback. Obviously, people are excited. This is the last leg of the Olympia qualification. Dave is going to have his Chicago Pro preview that's going to be live tomorrow on RxMuscle.com, as is Iron Rage. And then, of course, over the next couple of days, we're going to be releasing another installment of Live with Dave Palumbo with Anthony Pasquale asking Dave questions about his bodybuilding career, entertaining stuff as always. And then, of course, right now on RxMuscle.com, all new episodes of After Hours, the interview with Justin Rodriguez, and Heavy Muscle Radio, of course, from
I want to say one more thing. You know what? If Nick Walker doesn't win the show, if I were the Olympia guys, I'd give him a special invite. Used to happen all the time. Joe Weider used to give the guys that win the Nationals and guys, that would win big shows, he'd give them special invites just because they were larger than life kind of characters. Paul DeMeo comes to mind after he won Nationals. They gave him a special invite to the Olympia. I've seen it happen before to a lot of guys who were just big, phenomenal looking guys, and Joe just wanted to see those guys up on stage with the other, top Olympians. I think Nick Walker should get a special invite if he doesn't, just because, hey, you know what, he's a new pro, young guy, why not make it more exciting, something to think about.
No, well, you said it. I mean, right now he has a lot of hype behind him. He has a lot of fan support, popularity, whatever you want to call it. Young, savvy, as you said, good looking, knows how to play the game right now as a young and upcoming bodybuilder. He has that going from him. You look at his social media, the pictures are perfect, professional. They do him justice. I mean, it's a real narrative leading into the Chicago Pro. So, I mean, there's a lot of excitement. You have some young up-and-coming stars. You have someone like a Justin Rodriguez who, by his own admission, he's only been training for or competing rather for 5 years, right?
Yeah, less than 5 years. So, I mean, that's a guy that, certainly is only coming into his own now. That's what I find so fascinating. In the next 2 to 3 years, he'll be a top 5 Olympian easily, consistently. He's another Victor Martinez physique on the rise up. He's not going down, he's on the way up, and we don't even know what his potential is at this point.
And then, of course, Max Charles, who, obviously had a phenomenal showing at this recent Arnold Classic. He's going to be a name to look out for. Johnny O. Jackson, who came out of his partial retirement, he too is going to be competing this weekend. So a lot of reasons for excitement this upcoming weekend, and we'll see who's going to grab that final Olympia spot and what things are going to shake out as far as the point standings. And then down the road, we will see who will or will not receive a special invite to the 2020 Olympia. That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Special thanks to our producer, Tyler Shore. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.